Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everybody. Today, we are having a very excited conversation. It's a special edition of the Afro-Social Workers Forum, Germany. We started the forum because we wanted to educate the community on the role of social work and social workers in the community. We realized that many people in our community did not really understand the role of a social worker. And therefore, we decided, myself and Helen Abeke, to come up with this forum. And this forum has been touching the different aspects of life in the community. We want to empower you, we want to inspire you, and we want to mentor you and coach you. We want to build trust in the community so that together we can build the community. Today, we are having a very important conversation, a part two of the conversation that we started last week, and it's on boys or men education. And we want to find out how can we support our boy children, because of course we know that the men are already maybe men and may not want to change, but how can we help the boy child to understand their true identity? You do not want to miss this conversation. I have with me an amazing guest, and I tell you, you will love the conversation. I encourage you to share the links with friends, invite your friends, and hey, we are so privileged to have you. We are here because you are there. God bless you and stay tuned. So, you're welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We want to welcome, of course, our guest. I'm welcoming pastor, engineer, and social worker Eli Abeke. I'm so privileged, sir, to have you on the platform of the Afro Social Workers Forum. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Also, we welcome also Rose Wambui, a teacher, an educator. And Rose, we are so happy to have you on this platform because we know you're going to also have the other aspect of the conversation. I will be giving each person 5 minutes to introduce themselves and to give your statement on the topic of today. How can we support a boy child to understand their identity? I begin with you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vera. I'm so happy to be with you on air this evening. A great opportunity for us who are serving God, for us who are leading this area, this part of us, human being. And in the society is always a very, very, I will put it, a responsible aspect of the society. So we really need to be careful and watch what we say as so-called spiritual leader. As I speak to you, I breathe. As I speak to you, I have blood running, and I have two legs that's if I want to move, I can go. And if I want to wave, I do that. If I want to say it's okay, I can raise my thumb. So all these familiar gestures that you and I do every day. So basically, there's nothing different. But in the society, we give birth to each other. This is how God Almighty have created us. He said He has created the world so that we human can take dominion. And in course of this, we encounter a problem in our families. And today we are talking about boy's child. We find out that in the society, in different community, in different culture, men or boy's child tend to have some special preference in the family that's, from my point of view, not natural. You see, we create some certain norms that gives us problem in course of our existence. I'm saying it must not be. I'm saying We should look at it properly, and this should start from amongst the family. The mother, the father, they have the duty to look at the boy's child grow in a manner that both parents will get their respects respectively. And unfortunately, in some culture, basically around the world, that is not the case. And so a boy's child should be trained not different from the way a girl is being trained so that we can balance up. This is how we can create an atmosphere where a mother can be fully respected by her son.
Thank you very much, sir. A few things that I've taken note, and we're going to come into that conversation very soon. So, but before we get into that conversation, I want to welcome, of course, our next speaker. That is Rose Wambui. Rose, this is your platform. Give us your statement on today's conversation. How can we support our boy child to understand their true identity?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me once again on this platform. It's a great honor to be able to talk here. And this topic is especially important to me. And there is a new saying that I've been thinking about more and more lately. It's a Kiswahili saying, and it goes, chombo hakiendi ikiwa kila mtu anapiga makasia yake. And what that basically means is that a boat cannot move forward if everybody is rowing on their own direction. It needs people who have decided on a direction, and then they can row in that direction, and then they can move. And I think we are at a point in our society right now where we find that we seriously need to talk to each other. We are in a serious need of having a common conversation, um, because things are not working very well for us, especially as Black people. And my own point of view is always education and racism, and what does that have to do with kids, and how does it affect them? And if I especially think of what Eli has just said about educating both the girl and the boy child, if we are empowering the girl child, then we need to empower the boy child too. And we should not forget that whichever messages that were taught to girls that made them who they are today, the same messages boys were also listening. They were also seeing them, whether it was in books or in the Bible. And so we need to re-educate about these power structures. We need to bring in a conversation where we can put these matters on the table, stop speaking, beating around the bush, but really tackle the matter. Because if we cannot manage to have a conversation with each other, not about each other, but with each other, where we kind of sit down together and talk to each other, listen, um, then we're going to find it very hard to move forward, especially for us, because we know we have a common enemy, which is racism. And these aspects, it shows itself in so many ways in our lives. And if we cannot manage to talk about our issues, our own issues, then how are we going to manage to move in one direction, in the same direction, which is preferably forward? So I'm looking forward to this talk, and I'm looking forward to listen to also what will come up, because I think it's an important discussion, and I'm already really happy that we are here already together in this constellation, because this is what it needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Rose Wambui. Thank you for the lecture. Of course, I understand as a teacher, she's always telling us about books and re-education. Today, we are going to be having a conversation that is of diverse perspective, because we really want to have the diversity in our conversation. That's the reason why I took, or myself and Helen, we choose a young girl, and of course, we also wanted to have a young girl that is also experience both a culture, the European culture, the African culture. We also wanted to have the perspective of the male because, like you just said, Rose, we didn't want to have a conversation over the men, but we wanted to have a conversation with the men, and we choose someone who is, of course, from the religious sector, the spiritual sector, because we have come to the realization that these things also begin from this position of authority. And you said it very well, Rose. It's about power structure. And that's why our conversation is diverse today. And I'm going to begin my very first question with a pastor. He is having a double role. He has the role of a pastor, but he also has the role of a social worker. And so, my question to you, Sir Elim, is this. Um, how do we precisely, step by step, help our young boys to become their universal best version? I take this question because I want us to really go from the point of view of humanity, godliness, spirituality, and fulfilling of purpose. So, if we really want to fulfill purpose and we want our young boys to have identity that they're going to fulfill purpose, how do we specifically, step by step, help them to find their identity?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. This question has two parts. It has the spiritual identity aspect and what I will also call spiritual self-care. And on the other hand, I would simply say the domestic aspect of it. So helping a boy's child basically is very, very, very easy and normal. How should parents help their boy child that should look different from the way they help their girls? From my understanding as a father, and also being trained by a father, it is equal. So a boy's child from the onset should know that he, as a human, now minusing his sex, is equal to the opposite sex, also a human being. If parents are able to clear this point that there's no bias, then that boy will grow up with a full confidence that he will do anything that the sister does in that family, and also the other way around. So parents need to know that the culture in which they came to life is a culture that was created by people like them who have lived before they came. And so if they choose to pick up some certain stories in the community and drop it in their family, then obviously it is clear that they might have problem in cause of the bringing up their children, namely the difference that the society always make between boy and girls. So it is clear that I, as a father, should see it this way that my children out of both sexes will be trained equal so that the boy's child can take care of himself when he's out of the home. The girl's child can take care of herself when she is out of the home. So the independence that we parents can create from the very moment our children step into our family is very important. And now the spiritual aspect, spiritual self-care. These are activities that should nurture your spirit, that will allow you to excel, to become bigger. That means you sleep, you lie down, and you start to think or reason what you want to become tomorrow. And so you think big. This has nothing to do with religion, but it has to do with yourself, self-esteem, building the self-esteem. So you can imagine in a family where a boy child is always told, don't go into the kitchen because that's not for you. And even sometimes the mother will support that. So in course of time, he simply believed that, okay, that is not where I'm supposed to step in. But when he grew and leave the home, he can't even cook for himself. So imagine that mindset. No, that young man is not being encouraged in a proper way. So he needs to build himself spiritually. It does not need to take the Bible in his hand. It doesn't need to look out for any quotation. But he has to take this from his family that he is self-made. He has to be self-made. So he can stand a better chance when he takes a wife to be able to assist her. And of course, this will also pass to the children, male or female.
Thank you very much, sir. And in a summary of what you said, I am paraphrasing what you said. You said that there are two aspects of the coins. We have the spiritual aspect of it, which whereby the young man has nothing to do with religion. We want to grown up young men that have their highest self, live their highest self, and become their bigger self. So, which means that they fulfill purpose and destiny. And you touch also the other side of it, which is the parent education, so that we can help young men to become self-reliant. I am just paraphrasing. So self-reliant in that if they are wherever they are, they can take good care of themselves and not always usually have to wait for some other person to do the caretaking, which is actually an amazing stuff. I will always ask this question to men: if you met a woman who had everything just like you, what then becomes of if you want to just be this man and you can't provide financially, you can't provide any other aspect? Will you not choose to still have somebody because you fear you're not going to be able to be man enough? We're going to come to that conversation, sir. But let me take the aspect from Rose Wambi. Rose, you're a teacher, and I want to have this other aspect of it. How, as a teacher, you go to school, you have young people. How do you think we can step by step help our young boys to become their best selves and to find their identity?
Thank you. I think in the question of education, um, I have seen a lot of young boys, and I'm always or young boys or even young men whenever I work in schools where the children are a bit older, and what I always notice, especially in this teenage age, when the boys, especially black boys or boys who face some kind of racism or othering of some sort, they are trying to become something, to become somebody, and they are trying to prove it to someone. And I think this is the greatest danger that the society has really caused, because once you define manhood, then then you make it smaller. And I think that's what always happens, is when we define this is how a man is supposed to be and this is how a woman is supposed to be, automatically we limit the possibilities, because a human being, if we even see the Bible point of view where it says we are fearfully and wonderfully made, what does that mean? There are no boundaries to what you can become as a man or as a woman, but we human beings come in and define it. And with defining something, we always create limitation. And when we create those limitations, we also try to create a certain picture. This is how a man should look like. This is the kind of a car a man should be driving. This is how a man should be speaking. Now we all know that everybody is very diverse and hardly anyone speaks like anyone. But now you see young boys, especially, or men approaching manhood, trying to reach that that idea of manhood that is accepted by the society. And with that, because it's not who they really are, it's a picture they're trying to portray out there, then it doesn't come out naturally. And whenever a person tries to become something they are not, they become difficult to deal with. I think each one of us has already tried to deal with someone who we can already tell they are not showing us their real their selves. They are trying to show a paint a picture, and those become very difficult people. And if we have a picture of manhood, and all boys are trying to get to that manhood, but of course they never get there because no one is like any other, then there's always this limitation. And I always try to bring that also with the self concept, like I said in another earlier conversation. The self concept is the sum of what I think others think about me. So if a young boy is thinking this is who I'm supposed to be, but then he's not like that, obviously, then the self concept also reduces, because he's always going to think he's not good enough simply because he's not reaching this picture of manhood that has been painted for him. And where are these things painted? They are painted in books, they are painted in movies, they are painted in what we whenever we go, we have associations of men and women. The other day I was looking at a book for jobs, with just small pictures and the name of that job written under it. And I was surprised at my own reaction. I was seeing pictures of women pilots, and I was seeing pictures of men who were cleaning the house. And automatically, it's like my brain was disagreeing with what I was seeing, because I have seen women cleaning so much, such that my brain has not yet learned to associate a man cleaning, a woman who's a pilot, this diverse way, because even cleaning can be a good and fulfilling job. But if we tell boys this is not what a man is supposed to be, then they have to go and try to be something else, which they are not, but they're trying to reach a certain picture. So I think we have, especially for me when I'm in the education field, we have the responsibility of looking for material, because I strongly believe there is enough material. There are enough books, there are enough movies. It's just that we don't watch them. It's just that we don't read those books. It's just that we don't introduce those things in schools because of this power structure. It's a power structure. We'd rather read a book from Shakespeare than read a book from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And if I want to teach about short stories or dramatology, why can I not take another story from somebody else? Why do I always have to go for Shakespeare? Because Shakespeare has a renowned name. And through that, we continue recreating the same stories that we've taught children over generation and over generations. And then we cannot be surprised if we see things happening the way they're happening right now. If we see boys saying women are this and that, obviously they will think like that, because that's what we have taught them as a society. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's always a privilege to have you on the platform, and thank you so much for the conversation. I don't want to go right deep into your conversation. We leave it at that. But the one thing I learned from it is re-education, and the images and the pictures that we have given to our young men or to our boys, and they will never reach that picture, and so they keep struggling and struggling, and in the process they either become abusive, violent, because they really can't get to where they have been told they should be, and that becomes very detrimental in our society. My next question goes to you, Sir Pastor. It's related also to the images and the pictures we have, and I'm asking this question precisely to you, sir, because you're also figuring here as a man of God, as a pastor, and this also we see a lot in the religious sectors, in the religious organizations. And my question is really to know, how can you, leaders of the church, be instrumental to change the bad narratives that has been brought in the past, and of course change the images that we have? We are living in the 21st century, and we still have powerful, strong, intelligent young men believing truly that the woman's place is in the kitchen. And even though that woman is smarter than him, clever than him, can bring in more than him, to support him, not to fight him, to support him so that he has a life that is good, like every other godly child should experience. Yet we fight that. How can you, in the perspective of a leader in a religious organization or in church, help this area?
Yes, it's by action. Um, Now, if somebody has to look on me as a religious leader or any other role as a grown up man, a father, then I will also have to show that, yes, I am in that position and I am, but I'm also a human being. And also to let them know that the difference they are looking for is just a cliche. This is what there isn't, because at a certain point they feel insecure. And that's where I just ask the question, why feeling insecure? Is only the stupid man that will reason that way? Because even if it is said in the Bible that God have created a woman as a support, yeah, as a support for the man, this is a biblical statement that we will also want to emulate as Christian. But I've not read anywhere in the Bible that said I should oppress a woman. You see, so alone that makes a difference. That means if I stand out there in the pulpit, I should be able to say, listen, young man, that is not what it was meant when the Bible said a support. All right. So you have to come out with lessons and sermons that will educate people generally. You are not sent to the pulpit to preach people. Rather, you are sent to the pulpit to preach the word of God. Jesus Christ was sent to earth so that he can deliver us, and he shed his blood. So it was not partial. It was for everybody, man and woman. He was picking them as he goes along. All right. So if there is the mindset, it has to do with the mindset, and this begins from the different family home. And so this is where, again, I will repeat by saying that the settings back home, because this evening we're talking about boy, child, and also the man, the father, because the picture we saw the other time is very, very disgusting, and the tendency is to focus on the man or the husband at home. Why? How come you allow things to go that far? No, the situation on the table is more complex, my people. It's more complex. It has to do with the society we've been before and where we find ourselves now. It also has to do with culture, and yet the norms that governs there where we came from, namely Africa, and the norms that also reigns here is almost the same. Is it because the mentality, men there, men here, is almost the same? And you will be very, very surprised that here in Europe, you will still find such men, white men, who will reason in that direction. And so, again, we really have to look into our individual family. We have to come into conversation with our partner, men and women, to see how we can gonna share power. Because you believe it or not, matters like this, especially in the society we find ourselves, it has to do with power. I name it domestic power in the family. Right? So women in this society, also partly in Africa, they are advancing in their role in the society. So you can't tell them sit down there. I mean, you as a man voicing that, it should be a little bit. You should reason first before you do that, because you have a daughter there, you have a son there. So it's a matter of really checking yourself in the family and live according to the Bible. Because as I said, um, well, in my upbringing, I've not come across a part or a point where my father told me a woman is inferior to a man, and so naturally, I should believe that this is how God created us. One is female and one is male. So, the hierarchy in a society that we sometimes need to follow because we are struggling for power bring us to that level where we just overlook some certain things in our family. So, as I said, it's a complex matter, but we can deal with it if we listen to each other.
Oh, thank you very much. Try again to paraphrase. I love the last word. We can deal with it if we can listen to each other. And you went further to say it's a complex conversation because, of course, it has to do with power, with hierarchy. And, of course, usually if it favors someone, then they want to stay there. We have many of our women complaining here, not complaining and exclaiming and shouting, but where are the fathers? And so this is again a call for us. We really need to do this work. We really need to have this conversation on a regular basis. We need to have the conversation with our husbands, with our men, with the leaders who are men leaders, male leaders, so that they can also understand what it really means to show forth the glory of God. And that takes me to the next question, and to you, Miss Wambi Rose. Um, the African young boy is torn apart between cultures, philosophies, beliefs that are limited. You said that also somehow. Now, my question will be, how can the community, or again, the elders, teachers like you, models, someone said young boys need orientation, models, be of help to these young people in their personal development? Because at the end of it, it's about personal growth. Because if you so develop your personality, then insecurity will have no space. So how can we do that, ma'am?
Yeah, that's quite difficult, right? But the thing that always comes to my mind is tell the truth and acceptance. Acceptance that our history and our society has already taught us what it has already taught us, and telling the truth, especially when we teach things. Let's take the Bible. When we see how it's written, and whenever it just uses the word man to represent everybody, or when we see pictures being portrayed, that we can tell the truth. We can tell this is where these beliefs come from, because children, especially when they're still young, they always need a context. Why is a certain thing written the way it is written? If a child sits in church and listens to the book of Paul, where he said women are not supposed to speak while men are speaking, for example, the child is not capable of analyzing that by itself and thinking, but I know that's not true because the world has changed. But children don't think that far. Children take things the way they are there. So it is in our, because we are going to see these structures all over, right? Because it's not something that will finish tomorrow. But we need to be offering context to children to tell them the truth. And here is also both the work of the man and the woman, because I think we women have also internalized these ideologies too. I must say that the first time I saw a man crying, it shocked me because I have been taught men don't cry. So maybe that man is crying uh, and has been feeling ashamed, but now they start crying. And when a couple of years ago, and when I see that, it also shocks me, because this is what I have been taught. Both me and the boy child, we were taught this is how men are supposed to behave. So I think it is very important that both men and women see that they have internalized these structures. Both men and women have internalized women are supposed to be in the kitchen. Both men and women have internalized women are not supposed to be doing this and that. So it's not only the man or the father to do that, it's also us as women to start relearning the structures that we have learned, because it's also a form of bias. Whenever we go to the doctors, do we expect to see a man doctor or a woman doctor? Are we shocked when we see a woman doctor? What happens in our brains? And to just sit with that for 1 minute, because I always feel like it's not helpful to just deny outright that we are not like that. There is no way we grew up in this society and we did not internalize that somehow men are supposed to do some things and women are supposed to do some things. It's impossible to have gone through the society and not have internalized such things. So I think what we need to do as a society is, first of all, tell the truth on the part of men, to make it possible for young boys, to show them it is okay to be emotional, to show them it's okay to either be an engineer or an artist. Make it broader, because we are making the identity of boys and girls so small, such that they only have just a few chances to choose from. And I like what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie says. And Adichie says, if whatever it is does not require a specific body part that has either been given to a man or a woman, like breastfeeding can only be done by women, right? Because it's only women who have breasts, or people who identify as women, they're the only ones who have breasts. So, of course, obviously, that is something that only women can do. But if it's not something that has specifically been given its own special body part, let us open it up. And it's us as a society, because we human beings, we have a very great capability of making things either attractive or unattractive. It always lies in our own power. Nothing in itself is intrinsically good or bad, or more important or not. We are the ones, with the way we speak, with how we portray it outside. We are the ones who make something either good, important, or unimportant, just with our own actions. And if we have the power to make women less than, and to make men have some picture they have to uphold to, then we also have the power to rename all these things. Even if we look at the Bible, God gave Adam the power to name things. So if we have that power to name things, we can rename them again. We have that capability. We can, by talking. There's a woman who always says, let us speak until we no longer have words for it, because then we will know we have finished talking about it. But as long as we still have words to talk about it, then it means it needs to be talked about. And when we can, if we can just make it a topic right now, make it something that we are right now talking about. We make books that are about that. We sing songs that are about that. That's how each and every form of history has been given to people. It was either written, people sang about it, people drew paintings about it, and through that they gave it to the next generation. And we should know that the boy today is looking at the man, but also at the woman. How am I behaving as a woman when there are men around me? And how is the man behaving around me? So I can tell a child whatever I want to tell them. But if my behavior is contrary to what I'm telling them, they are obviously going to do what I'm doing, not what I'm saying. Children don't generally do, even grown-ups don't generally do what we are telling them to do. They do what they are seeing us doing, because they are seeing the results automatically. And I also think we should also a lot of empowerment, because whenever there's a power structure, generally there's someone who is less. Generally, there's someone who is being looked down upon. And also, I think it plays a very big role to have empowerment amongst us, and to have these conversations, not just by saying you men should stop being like this and you women should stop being like this, but in a form of a conversation. Let us ask each other, how do we feel? Let us listen to each other. Let us listen to how are people feeling, and let us also accept that. Because if a man comes to me and I don't want to accept his feelings, I don't want to accept that he is feeling low right now, how is he going to trust that the next moment, if he can come to me feeling low, that I will listen? So it's both ways. We need to come in both ways.
Thank you so very much. It's amazing. It's amazing. You said that we need to rename things. And this is my take home message. We need to rename things. We need to allow the boy child to cry. We need to let him know that he has the right to his feeling. We need to understand and learn to restructure the structures that was already there in place. This is powerful. My question now, the next question we have also, viewers, thank you all. Uh, Mothers, especially, I'm seeing a lot of mothers, of course. I'm seeing some of our brothers and our fathers. I appreciate you all. We are very, very grateful to have you. Thank you for giving us the gift of your time. We are taking this conversation in the community because we truly believe that it is time now for us to change the narrative. And we do not want to look at our lifestyle in form of European lifestyles or the African lifestyles. What would and how would it look like if we just saw ourselves like universal human beings for a specific purpose here on earth? What do you think, sir? If we just adapted the new Rose Wambi say rename things, what if we just rename ourselves? There's no woman, there's no man, there's no male, there's no female, there's just a human being here on earth to fulfill divine calling. Would that make a lot of difference?
I'm afraid no.
Okay.
You see, because if you look even in relationship within same sex, they also have some struggle. Is it because it is your character, it is your identity, is your mindset that you always bring into a relationship. And if we also look into the world of animals, it's the same thing. It's also female and male, and they all have their role to play in the society. And so, what we're talking about is, yes, we could rename, and today we don't have just one or two sex that is, known to us. We have mixed sex, we have X sex, undefined sex. There are different type of sex. And again, if people come together who have found themselves having one sex or both sex coming together, they will also have to learn how to respect each other. Right? So, yeah, we should look at it at a different perspective that we human beings, we are created to do a lot of things together. And when the time comes for us to disagree, then we also have to look for a way of agreement to disagree. So, to be precise, when a boy child is growing up in a family, we also have to set these norms from onset. If a mother will be treating a child in the right manner, so that the boy should also know that, yes, I'm equal to the task when it comes to preparing food in the house. I'm also equal to the task when it comes to hygiene in the house, taking care of the house, doing domestic work. So there it begins at that age, at that stage. When you go a different way, that's where this sex of a thing comes in, a man and a woman. So we're creating a situation where it is clear that the nature say male and female, but now you comes up with norms that will make one sex It will be up there and the other one down there. So it doesn't make sense. Yeah, if you take out that male or female, yet we will still come together to see that we have to live together. And the only way is to understand each other so that we can do the right thing at the same time and do the right thing for the right situation. Because if you create a wrong situation, obviously, you're going to go through difficulties. And if you go through difficulties, your family will break. And the society will also be a witness of a broken family. And it goes on like that, on and on and on. So this is why we have this problem we're having now.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Thank you. I took note, and you said even if we only had human beings, then norms will still be created to marginalize other human beings. And therefore, the best way to go about it would be to have respect and do the right things at the right time. And that takes me to my question to you, Ma'am Rose. Mori Okay is asking the question. We want to get some questions from the group, from the our family out there watching at us. How do women contribute to the boy child crisis?
I think that's a very good question because in every kind of crisis, both people participate in one way or the other. And with the boy child crisis, I think we as women, how we have contributed to it is that, like I said, with the messages that we grew up with, that we have not started, that we have not yet um, really analyzed what they actually meant to us. If we read Snow White slept all her life and then she was kissed and then she woke up, and we kept on reading such stories, then then we started thinking that a man will come and do something and then we will wake up, for example. That's just some kind of the stories that we have been taught. Or Beauty and the Beast, or all these forms of small stories that we grow up with, that always bring us in a position where the woman is passive and the man is the one who's coming in with some kind of an action, who's saving the day. And if we are not careful about such issues, then we can very quickly also feed into this system, because this system cannot work if it's only men who is doing it. The system works because men and women and other diverse people are feeding into the same system. So I think the way we contribute to it is in accepting these messages, is in refusing to confront people whenever we feel that something is uncomfortable. Like I had another situation the other day. I had a date with a guy and we were talking nicely, and then he wanted me to do something, and I said no, I was not going to do it. And then he told me, I'm asking you as a man to do it. And then I was like, I'm saying as a woman I will not do it. So how often do we have the strength to say no to such things? How often do we have the strength to also ask ourselves our own to I always say we should start with where we are. Let us notice our own behaviors. How are we already just encouraging these behaviors to continue? What are we showing our children in return? Because if our children always see us in a powerless position, right? For a child, it's very important to have a parent who is empowered. It's important for a child to look up to a parent who has an own standing. And if we don't manage to empower ourselves, we always look disempowered, then the child will not look up to us, and the child will also not want to be like us, right? Because every child needs somebody to look up to. So I think we really, really need to empower each other. We really, really need to talk about these things, even with fellow women. Let us listen. Let us just listen to these stories. Let me come to you, Man Sompon, and listen to you. How has your journey been like? Let us talk as women, because that's the only way we can normalize these conversations. We can normalize saying that doesn't go. And then we can also normalize, okay, that's a man, that's how he behaves, and that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm seeing Pastor Ellie wants to add something to that.
Yes,
Please.
yes. Thank you very much for this chance. Um, Boy-child crisis begins there, quartered to on his way to his manhood. And this is exactly the period at a time, if the mother is not observant to let him go into the direction of his manhood, that's where the crisis begins. Because the tendency is that some mom, they feel that the boy's child is still the child of yesterday, especially the boy's child. And they, at a certain point, they just miss the information that, yeah, this young gentleman is ready to go into the direction of manhood. In different cultures in Africa, it is celebrated. Yeah, in Kenya, for example, if you reach the age of 14, you are prepared for the manhood. And then, as from that moment and point forward, you, mom, you're supposed to step back. And if you don't do that, of course, he will not refuse you as a mom. He loves you more than anybody. He will not be able to communicate that to you. And if you're not sensible enough to notice that, you'll be doing a lot of things that disturbs him. So that's where the conflict comes. And especially in families that where mothers are single mothers, um, is even a little bit more severe. You see, so um, we find ourselves in a situation mostly in Europe. You know, it's something very normal that single fathers or single mothers are there. The society make the necessary provision for that. You see, but this is the point. I believe strongly that if the time point is missed, so that this distance can also be respected from the mom, then it turns to crisis. And this is how I can define that boy-child crisis.
Oh, thank you very much. And we are realizing that it's going back to the family, going back to the education, going back to the messages, and the messages who are those carrying it, usually the mom. And we are still going back to point that finger to the mother. But of course, we are also pointing back to the father that they are supposed to be there and watchful. Our time is usually fast spent, and it's so unfortunate because such important conversations, we need to have them on a regular basis. That's why next week we are still going to have this conversation. But permit me to say that you give your last words, and I'm going to start with Pastor Ili. Please give us your last words in a form of advising the community, advising the leaders in the community, advising the young boys. Give us your last word as a form of empowerment.
Yes. You see, we, majority of us listening tonight, we all come from another culture. We all come from Africa. We are conversant with the way we are being brought up. Most of us have been brought up in a collective society. That means we have our grandparents, we have our uncles, aunties, and so on, friends who are good to us, neighbors, and they also assist us to take care of the family. If we have one or the other problem, and even if we're just away for short time, we can confidently trust our children in their hands. Here in Europe, it's totally different settings, and in other words, we are looking at a culture we brought, the upbringing we brought, and now we've given birth to 1, 2, 3 children in this society that are growing up differently. So we need a balance in our reasoning as parents. Now, if we are so traditionally inclined that we feel we cannot give up a part of how we were trained back from home, then we should reason again to see that we should also take some advice from the society we find ourselves, the settings, because our children came to life here in this society, and the way they live is definitely different. The way they reason is definitely different because the education they enjoy is from here. It's quite different. So at the point, the bottom line is parents, even before they get into marriage, before they get into dating themselves, they should also reason that they find themselves in a different society with different norms. So there has to be some discussion to see how they can balance their views. And by the time they can master that, I'm very sure that to a greater percentage, they'll be able to manage their boy child and try to bring it on equal level with their girl's child so that they can better find themselves in this society we find ourselves.
Thank you so very much, Pastor, engineer, social worker. Thank you very much, Pastor Eli, for this amazing conversation and the council. And you're making us understand that it has to also do with culture, but we have to do the work to be able to help them grow to be who we really want them to be or who they are called to be. Ma'am Rosa, I want to give you the opportunity as well to give us your last word of advice. We have a lot of people saying, hey, Mambi Rose, after listening to you, I'm proud to be a mother or a woman. So tell us, what would you tell us to advise the community on how to help the boy child?
Thank you very much. Thank you also for your comments. What I would say is understanding the root of the problem is the first place that we will always have to start. And we have to look at this as a power structural thing. And when we look at it as the black woman being the lowest in this whole structure, and yet still she is the mother of all of these young boys right now. And if she is looked at, if we look at her as the lowest in this structure, and accept that this is where the society has brought us, then we can start looking at it in a different level. Let us start talking about that. Let us start seeing how is also racism affecting the boy child. Because if the boy child or the man is being looked down upon, he's always being crushed by things that are happening to him. He in turn, because we know that hurting people hurt, he in turn will look at the weaker person and try to hurt them instead. So let us also look at where is this unnatural, where is this thing being imposed upon us that is even not in our culture. And also let us consider that we tend to romanticize Africa, especially when we live in the diaspora, and that there is no one way of being an African. There is no one way of being an African man. Let us make that a conversation, because when we stay here, we start thinking this is how men are supposed to be. But like Eli said, I too have never had my father saying women are worthless beings. So I too have never had my father saying women stink, as an African man. So let us also remember that there is not one single way of being an African. And also let us bring in a society, like Helen Abeke always says, it takes a community to bring up a child. Let us, if it is single mothers, because in this society it's just like that, there are a lot of single mothers. Let us create a society where we can bring in other figures, because a child needs both men and women and all the other people that are around them to grow. And if we don't have that, if we cannot provide that, just because situations in life have brought us to where we are, let us look for society outside. And there are enough people out there. There are enough teachers. I always want to say there are enough books, there are enough movies, there is even a YouTube video, and there is surely even a song about it. We just need to make it important. We need to prioritize it, because It is important today, and the boy child of today is the man of tomorrow. But already we have men right now. And let us encourage men also to go into education. Let us encourage men out there. You don't have to be engineers if you don't like it. Go and become a teacher. Go and become a tzia. Go and do something if that's what you like. Work with young boys because they also need to see men who are making it, who can still encompass all their emotions and be happy doing it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is always a very challenging thing to keep to time. And today, a summary of it is that the boy child needs also empowerment. We want to educate the boy child to understand that he deserves the right of his emotions. And of course, he also deserves the right to cry. We want to empower the boy child to know that he is worthy of being a boy child, and we do not want to put any additional burdens on him, but we also want to encourage the parents that we want to have young men become the men we want to, especially for the women. Train up the boy to be like the husband you want to have tomorrow. We've come to the end of this conversation, and I want to appreciate you all. I want to appreciate you for taking your time out. Next week, we are going to still have the continuation of part three of this conversation because we think it is time for awareness, and it's still time for us to let the boy, the male, and the female, and everyone understand that they're so important. Until we meet next week, have a nice evening. God bless you. My name is Vera Sampon, and today you have been watching the Afro Social Workers Forum. God bless you.